STARBORN. Remember, to be a star, you have to shine your own light, follow your own path, and not worry about the darkness, because that's when stars shine brightest. Every year at the start of the year, I do 2 shows that cover events for the whole year. So this week's show is going to cover the new moons and the eclipses for all of 2018, and we're going to go through them month by month. And there can be a variety of reasons why things can change this year. And that is, so if you've been looking at our website, starborninstitute.org, you already know that the title of tonight's show is Winners and Losers. And the many different reasons why there can be winners and losers this year is, first of all, there is a rare triple eclipse that will occur this year in July and in August. A triple eclipse occurs when there are 3 eclipses that occur, one right after the other, and each is 2 weeks apart. In years where there are triple eclipses, there can be great social unrest and change. That can make some winners and losers. Another reason why there can be change this year is because there are 3 major planets that are changing signs. The first one has already done it. It was on December 20th, just a few weeks ago, when Saturn went into Capricorn, the sign it rules, so it's very strong right there. And then 6 months later, on May 15th, another major planet changes signs because Uranus leaves Aries and it goes into Taurus on the very day of the new moon in Taurus. And 6 months after that, on November 8th, Jupiter leaves Scorpio and goes into Sagittarius, which is the sign it rules, so it too will be very strong. Another reason why there can be winners and losers is because there's going to be an unusual amount of light in the sky as the year begins. And that's because there are 2 full moons in January and another 2 full moons in March, along with the new moons that are in these signs as well during those months. And so this is a time when there can be winners and losers for a variety of different reasons. And although there are 5 eclipses this year, 2 of them are in Leo, which is a fixed sign. Another 2 are in Aquarius, which is another fixed sign, and they will be opposing each other. So 4 eclipses will be opposing planets in fixed signs. And since fixed signs don't budge, that can cause a little tension as well. All right, what does it mean in the month of January? Well, in January, there are 2 full moons. The first one is on January 2nd at 12 degrees of Cancer. And Cancer is the sun sign of the United States, which is actually at 13 degrees. So we're really going to be able to see America quite clearly and probably in an optimistic light at the start of the year. Then on January 17th, there is a new moon at 27 degrees of Capricorn. And there are 6 planets in Capricorn. That sign is really heavily emphasized. It is the traditional ruler of the 10th house of your career and your public reputation. So those things can be emphasized along with the fact that Capricorn represents very hard work, and it does represent rewards earned over a long period of time despite obstacles and delays. And so Capricorns are very steady people. They do not like to skip steps, and their sign rules perseverance. So all of that can be emphasized or heightened, and that simply means that you may have to face some performance issues right at the start of the year, and there can be some expansion of big business or big government, because that's what Capricorn rules as well. And then 2 weeks later, on January 31st, there is the first eclipse of the year, and it is a lunar eclipse at 12 degrees of Leo. Leo is a sign of leadership, but this is a time when there is the possibility that a leader's future could look very uncertain. And that is because Leo opposes the sign of the future, Aquarius. And the uncertainty could be both professional and financial, because Jupiter in Scorpio is squaring this lunar eclipse. And so this is a time when we all have to be a little bit careful with our money. And somebody who can be very over-optimistic about the future might be wondering how they're going to pay for it. And this is also a time when, believe it or not, gamblers lose big time. So it really isn't going to pay to gamble this year, even when there are eclipses in the sign of Leo. All right, what does it mean in February? Well, in February, on February 15th, one day after St. Valentine's Day, there is a new moon at 27 degrees of Aquarius. And the future can be looking very bright, particularly some sort of dream could be looking like a glittering star. But there still can be many restrictions involved with that. And that is because this is a time of practicality. Because Saturn moved into Capricorn on December 20th and is going to stay there until 2020. It will be joining Pluto there, the planet of deep transformation and change and deep truth. Those planets are going to emphasize stability. So anybody who's got visionary aims, and particularly people in high tech or people who are inventive, are certainly going to have to be able to develop some sort of proven track record, or else they're going to have to do a lot of stringent budget cutting. So even though you can have bright ideas about the future, if you can't pay for them, and if you skip steps and don't work really hard, you could be in deep trouble. And a dream, particularly if it's looking bright, could be facing strict restrictions instead. Okay, what does it mean in March? Well, in March, this is another month when there are 2 full moons and a new moon as well. So on March 2nd, there is a full moon in Virgo, and Virgo rules details and facts and accountability. And then 2 weeks later, on March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, there is a new moon at 27 degrees of Pisces. So a dream can certainly have to sort of come down to earth a little bit and be a little bit more practical or affordable. And that might be possible, except that even though it can be looking quite hopeful, as soon as you start looking at the facts and the details and the costs and the long-term consequences of some sort of dream, then a backlash can ensue as people get very, very practical, and there is the possibility that there can be unrelenting challenges to some sort of new dream, and there is the possibility that it might just fade from sight instead, because 2 weeks after the new moon, at the end of March, on March 31st, there is another full moon. Remember, a lot of light in the sky, and it is in the sign of Libra. Libra rules the law, and so there is the possibility that we see fully at this time, by the end of March, that the law and legal precedent will not bend. And that might be the end of somebody's dream at that time. Okay, what does it mean in April? Well, in April, hard times are upon us. And that is because on April 16th, there is a new moon at 26 degrees of Aries. However, there are 4 planets in Aries at the time: the Sun, new moon, Mercury, and Uranus, and they are all very harshly squared by 3 planets in Capricorn. April is a dangerous month, particularly between April 26th and April 28th. There is extreme danger. You shouldn't take any risk at all during that period of time. But under the new moon, there are actually 7 planets in harsh aspect to each other, because the 4 in Aries are being squared by Saturn, Mars, which is exalted in Capricorn and is the ruler of Aries, and also by Pluto. The force and the strength of these planets in Capricorn mean that a new beginning would have a very tough time getting off the ground right now. And in fact, people who are a little bit ahead of their time can be wondering how to get money to finance their dreams. And I don't think that that's really going to happen, because if somebody doesn't have a proven track record of accomplishment, then they will not be able to get further funding to make their dream come true. And so by the end of the month, there can be a lot of cost cutting that has to be done, and that's why hard times can be upon some people. All right, what does it mean in May? Well, on May 15th, there is a new moon at 25 degrees of Taurus. And on the very same day, another major planet changes signs because Uranus, which has been in Aries for 7 years, comes into Taurus. And because it's a new moon in Taurus and the moon is exalted in Taurus, that's good because it means there are now 7 planets trining each other in the sturdy, practical earth signs. And so the day is saved, thank heavens. And it might be because of stringent cost cutting, or it might be because there are some mergers and acquisitions, or it might be because there is just simply an infusion of cash, quite a bit of it, that comes sort of at the last minute and saves the day, which is good. So this is a time that can, when people who are being very practical, can make out pretty well. And so that's a good full moon or a new moon because there are so many planets in the earth signs. Okay, what does it mean in June? Well, in June, on June 13th, there is a new moon at 23 degrees of Gemini, and Gemini rules casual acquaintances and pals and buddies and your neighbors, and it rules youth. So at this time, a lot of young people can be on the move, and yet, at the same time, there can be people that are dragging their feet and they are impeding progress. And so that can really slow things down. And in fact, by the end of June, there are 5 retrograde planets. And so not only will something have to start over again, but something else can be greatly delayed that you might have been rather looking forward to. But instead, it's going to slow down because there are some people that want to see that happen, which is too bad. All right, what does it mean in July? In July, we come to the period where there is a triple eclipse. And remember, a triple eclipse is really 3 eclipses that occur 1 every 2 weeks, 3 in a row. And 2 of them are in the month of July. So on July 13th, there is a wonderful solar eclipse at 21 degrees of Cancer. And it is a wonderful eclipse because there is a grand trine in fire signs at the time. And remember, Cancer is the sun sign of the United States. And so Jupiter in Scorpio is trining the sun and the moon. And remember, the moon rules Cancer, so it's very strong there. And Neptune in Pisces is also trining this solar eclipse. And Neptune is the ruler of Pisces. So that simply means that there can be a happy family reunion, maybe a lot of them, in the month of July. And also there can be a resurgence of or concentration on American values, which is wonderful. And there can also be the possibility that some old obstacle is removed sometime in the month of July, which would be very good, because 2 weeks later, on July 27th, there is a lunar eclipse at 5 degrees of Aquarius, and this one is terrible. And the reason why is that there are 6 planets in the fixed signs at the time, and they are all forming a grand cross in the fixed signs. And remember, fixed signs do not budge, so there's a lot of tension under this lunar eclipse in Aquarius. And on top of that, the lunar eclipse, which is a full moon in Aquarius, is conjuncting Mars, the planet of war, hate, anger, greed, and jealousy. So that is a dangerous time. And there is the possibility by the end of the month that there could be some financial or military attack. And that could be rather disastrous. So we have to be very, very careful under that full moon because something could certainly explode. And remember that Aquarius does rule things that go through the air. So it rules high tech, but it also rules electricity and the field of aviation, and it rules all space travel as well. All right, what does it mean in August? Well, in August, the 3rd eclipse occurs, and that is because on August 11th, there is a new moon, a solar eclipse, at 19 degrees of Leo. And that certainly, once again, is an illustration that a leader can be rather uncertain, both personally and professionally, or even financially, about their future. And there is the possibility that a leader, amid financial concerns, could step down or leave. And at the same time, because there is a grand trine in the fire signs, Mars in Sagittarius is trining this solar eclipse in Leo, and so is so is a planet in Aries. And so at this time, there is the possibility that there can be some swift action by somebody to make sure that there are better steps taken for the future. And it could be because of financial concerns. So we really need to sort of watch things closely, and we could see a change in leadership anywhere in the world at that time. Okay, what does it mean in September? Well, in September, on September 9th, there is a new moon at 17 degrees of Virgo. And it's a really good one because there are 7 planets in a grand trine in the Earth signs. And so that is because there are planets in Taurus, Capricorn, and Virgo. And because there are 7 of them and they are all so harmonious, it simply means that this is a time, since Virgo does rule modesty, when a modest proposal or some pared down idea does gain traction. And it could become very viable. In other words, people could be really interested in it, and that might be because there has been some cost cutting, which is good. And so that means that the chances for its success are very good now. And at the same time, your health and a lot of other people's could really improve in a slow but sure way, which is the way we're all going to be operating between now and 2020. So we are entering a new era of steady, slow progress. It doesn't even pay to speed up too fast, not while there are so many good planets in Capricorn, which is a sign that moves slowly. Okay, what does it mean in October? Well, in October, on October 9th, there is a new moon at 16 degrees of Libra. And this is a time when there is, when it looks as if our troubles can be easing a little bit, and that is because there could be news about some favorable financial settlement or infusion of cash that can really help a lot of people, so that would be good. And there is the possibility that a truce could occur at this time, and yet it would be on very tough terms, but it could happen. And on top of that, there is somebody around that can be very tight-fisted with their money, and they will not let go of it. So you've sort of got to take the good with the bad at that time. Okay, what does it mean in November? Well, on November 7th, there is a new moon at 15 degrees of Scorpio. And there could be treachery afoot, because it is being squared by Mars, which has gone into Aquarius again. And so that is a possibility, since the new moon rules our emotions, the moon rules our emotions, that our emotions could really erupt about future plans. In other words, not everybody's on the same page, and there could be a lot of emotional upheaval at the time. And once again, this could occur anywhere in the world. So we have to be very careful. And the reason why emotions can be erupting is because there can be some imposters or some cover-ups that are revealed and that do demand that justice is done, and it will be at that time. So we may get our eyes open again, and there is something that will have to be done about some sort of problem. All right, what does it mean in December? Well, in December, I'm happy to say that, oh, by the way, on November 8th, one day after the new moon in Scorpio, the 3rd major planet changes signs because Jupiter leaves Scorpio and goes into Sagittarius. So on December 7th, when there is a new moon in Sagittarius at 15 degrees, Jupiter is there. And what that means is that true believers win. In other words, if you've been steady in your faith and you've been trying to do your best and you have endured delays and obstacles and still gone forward and worked hard and made sacrifices, you are going to win something by the end of the year because you've been true to your values, which is really wonderful. But at the same time, there can be a giant lie or fraud that we will find out about. And that too needs to be prosecuted in one way or another. And so this is a year when change can come about because we are able to see more and more things come out that have been hidden. And that can create great social change in the world as well. And so we end the year by seeing justice done, and particularly among two groups. The pretenders and the predators will lose big. And so if you have been enduring change this year and yet you've decided that you do want to make sacrifices and you have developed a long-range goal, then that goal may be achieved by the year 2020 when Saturn finally leaves Capricorn. But this is a time in our lives, since we're entering a new era, that we have never seen before, because Pluto, which has a very long trajectory, it takes over 200 years to get around a chart once, has never been with Saturn in Capricorn, at least not that we know about. And Saturn takes 28 to 30 years to get around. And since that is a sign that rules our prestige and our careers and our public reputations, those are the things that are going to be on the line this year. And you will have to conform. Gamblers and independent thinkers are going to lose big. Anybody who's taking a lot of risk is not going to succeed this year. So anyway, that is what you can look forward to. Next week's show is going to cover the sun sign predictions for the whole year. So thanks so much, and remember you can see the show anytime you want by subscribing to it on our website, starborninstitute.org, and you can hear our podcasts there as well. Bye.